My name is John, and this is Please Allow Me. Today we sit with a true savage, the master of the face-melting guitar solo, the coiner of the term panty-dropping American rock. He's a guitarist and a songwriter. He's worked with Rick Barton, Meaghan Casey, Gary Rubin, Triton Taylor, the K-Fingers Band, and of course, the Pheromone Factory. Please allow me to introduce the mailman, Paul Yu. Paul Yu, what the fuck is going on?
I am flattered that you have me today, to be honest. This is great. I haven't been out of my house in a few months.
Dude, to kick this off, I needed someone who was going to talk, someone who knows a lot about a lot of stuff. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to get a true savage in here. So I thought about the mailman, Paul Yu, because he delivers.
I deliver. I'm smart. We don't have video. I'm good looking too, but I'm sure the viewers will trust that.
You do look great.
Yeah, you look great too. I like the hair.
I'm glad you said that, because if I had said that, it would sound like I was bragging. But in reality, I do look really good.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with bragging. Honestly, I brag daily.
What have you been up to, my man?
Well, lately, not a whole lot because of the COVID thing, but I've been trying to, you would think, because I'm a musician and I consider myself a professional musician, although it's not my main source of income, you would think that I would be playing more music because I have a lot of free time, but it's funny, I'm playing less, and that scares me. And the reason I think is because I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so like with no bars being open, and that's really my bread and butter is playing guitar for a bunch of drunk people at a bar, and they seem to be the least important to the government. With this whole COVID thing, and with the news that's going on with the rest of the country and all that, I'm just not seeing Massachusetts opening up bars when they said they might do that. And so it's tough for me because with musicians and whatnot, there's a lot of different avenues they take to keep their chops up. And for me, it's going to a bar, getting blasted, and rocking out,
So you're not jamming out in your house because you're not getting off on that the way you get off in front of a live bunch of people screaming and yelling for you.
Exactly. Yeah. That's pretty much the gist of it. Backing tracks only do so much for me. So.
And also, you're probably good enough at your craft already where it's not like you're sitting there running back scales up and down and trying to figure out new songs and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to do that stuff, and I do it. But again, when I don't see a point in doing it, because, I want to perform. My thing is performing in front of people. Like, what good is it if I'm like really nasty at running up and down scales and, being really fast or being really, I don't know, emotional on the guitar or whatever it might be. What people might think is being, good playing. I need people in front of me for that to work. So
when you're thinking about playing guitar, who's your favorite guitar player of all time?
Oh, that's a tough one. I get asked that a lot, and I can never narrow it down to one. But if I'm gonna say, honestly, it's run of the mill. I like the classics, and I'm gonna start with Jimi Hendrix. But if I could, it would be a mix between Hendrix and Knopfler, Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits.
So when I say who's your favorite guitar player, sometimes people have a different answer. Like, your favorite guitar player from a technical standpoint might be a different guitar player than like who like really revs your engines and who amps you up when you're sitting around drinking beers at home. You have a different answer for that?
Yeah, it's situational. I would say it's very situational for music. That's a good way to think about it. But I think at the end of the day, I'm into Jimi Hendrix. I was gonna say it would be Jimi Hendrix. It's
Right.
if I were gonna say one guy, and the reason I would say him is because he had this sort of I don't give a shit personality, and I'm gonna take a bunch of acid and like smoke a bunch of weed and just like rock out, and like some record company is gonna give me a bunch of money and I'm gonna go in the studio and just spend it all and write in the studio, which was unheard of when he was doing it at the time. And along the way, whether it was on purpose or by accident, he's gonna come up with some stuff that is used today and people still dig it.
Right. So would you say he's a guy that you modeled yourself after when you were a young kid, like sitting in your room, you couldn't get laid, so you were sitting there playing a guitar?
Yeah, I'd say he's one of them for sure. And that was before I even knew about sort of the, the background of him, like innocently, like at 10 years old or whatever it is. It was really the sounds that was coming out, and he was experimenting with the new technologies at the time. So aside from his story, it was a lot of what he was doing on a technological level that drew me to him.
How old were you when you first picked up a guitar?
I was 10 years old. Yeah.
You picked one up, and then what drew you to it? And then not only what drew you to it, but like once you were drawn to it, what kept you there?
What drew me to it was my dad would play, he would put on these records, whether it be like the Eagles or Supertramp or Fleetwood Mac, or CCR. And I thought, wow, that's cool. Whatever it is, it just hit me, something it like hit me inside, and I felt something. And I discovered rock music, Zeppelin, the Stones, Hendrix. And I just looked in the mirror and I would play air guitar and I'd rock out. And I just felt like this is me, and that someday I'm going to get real good at this and just fucking like, that's what I'm going to do. And my dad had like an acoustic guitar sitting around, and I just said, you know what, I want to play the guitar. And he paid for lessons for me, which was great. And, I rented an electric guitar, and, I just stuck at it. And that's like, I don't know. Yeah. I just saw myself as a performer. I was always kind of like a silly, like loud, annoying, ADD kid. And I just thought like playing the guitar and like performing in front of people was going to be what I was going to do.
When I was a kid, there was a band in my school, and I thought, yeah, man, I want to play the drums. And so I went into the room, I'm in third grade, and it's a band room. So I'm thinking we're going to rock out. I don't know, like I'm going to hear some like Fleetwood Mac. That's what my mom used to play around the house when, she would be doing housework or whatever.
Can't go wrong, Fleetwood Mac.
No. And then I go in there and it's like a marching band. And so I thought I was going to rock out on the drums. And the next thing you know, they strapped this thing behind my neck and they put a snare drum, attached to my waist. And I'm just playing like Little Drummer Boy over and over and over. And I thought it was really cool. And I thought maybe in a few years, they're going to give me like a real drum set, and I'll get some toms and I'll get a hi-hat and I'll be able to rock out. And I would go to these like jazz festivals and listen to like Buddy Rich when I was a little kid. And I actually met him, and I thought that was awesome, but it never came to fruition because by the time I started to really get into it, I grew bigger. And so they were like, you know what, why don't you take this football? And, unfortunately when you're that age, kids take one of those two paths. They either go in the band room or they go and play football. And the end goal is the same. Try and score touchdowns to meet cheerleaders, try and shred out to meet groupies.
That's exactly it. But what's funny that it wasn't a girl. It wasn't about meeting girls when I first did it. There was something actually inside of me where
it probably wasn't. You didn't know it.
You're right. You know what? Because at the end of the day, life is just simply about procreating. And I didn't know it at the time. That's true. It is true in some ways. But
it can be about practicing the procreating also.
Yeah.
Honing your skills.
I would sit there with an electric guitar and not know anything about it. And I would just strum up and down and envision myself, and one day it just clicked. None of it made sense, like reading music and all that. And then one day it just clicked. I don't know what it was, because I haven't started smoking weed yet at that point. Like I didn't do anything that was like profound enough. It was just like something mentally clicked. But I liked sports too when I was a kid. That's the thing. I really actually do like sports. And also, I wish that I had gotten into, I kind of wish that I did do more of that along with playing the guitar.
And I'm the exact opposite. I wish I played more music along with playing sports. Yeah. When I was like like in 7th grade, and all the kids, they start to pick one path. Like all the kids start to go into like skateboarding and music, and like they're listening to hardcore shows in the basement of the Masonic Temple. Well, I got to go fucking to football practice, right?
Yeah.
And secretly I was wishing like I could play music and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you take one of those paths, and meanwhile you go home at night, and back when you had like a 5 CD changer and like your, $199 York stereo in your room, and you throw the red light on, and you're 13 years old and you're super moody and aggro, and you get the homeless guy will buy you a couple of 40s, and you sit in your room and hope nobody knocks on the door while you're rocking out to some Jane's Addiction.
Yeah. The one thing though that's funny is that when I would go to like parties in high school or whatever, it was almost always at like it was the football players or like hockey. I think, what was the big ones? It was definitely football and hockey. I think it was a while ago, but football, hockey. I don't really ever remember like other like musicians. I never thought about like playing music that was like a clique. Like, oh yeah, I'm a musician. I never it was just sort of like something I liked to do.
Cause that would be real douchey.
Yeah, it would be. And I'm a douche, but I'm not that kind of douche. I was more like the douche, like I'd go to a party and like I'd probably be really loud, spill a bunch of beers, and then like, I don't know, try to not necessarily get into fights, but sort of like test my like manhood, as a pubescent boy in a rich town with a bunch of big football players, and the girls liked me. That was the thing. That was the other thing.
I don't question that at all.
No, yeah. I mean,
so what is it about the music industry that keeps you going right now?
There's nothing. But I honestly, I play because there's like a fire inside me that it's just me. It's just who I am. And that's the way that I am able to express myself without, I don't know. It's because I think it's, I don't do like work that is me. I do work to like for the benefits and to, make rent and this and that. And I think music is just like inside of me, like performing. Like I need to perform in front of people.
So that's part of like you just being alive. You don't care. Yeah. You're gone are the days of trying to play in a stadium show or anything like that.
No. I will if any band asks me to play in a stadium show, I'm going to do it because I love performing in front of people.
At Paul U.
Yeah. Paul at U on Instagram. I have like 200 followers, so I need more. Rack that shit up. I think but at the end of the day, it's sort of like, I was actually thinking about this the other day because of UFC 251 happening tomorrow. And I thought, it's funny because a lot of people are betting on Masvidal, or I feel like a lot of people want him to win, even though Usman is the favorite. And I think it has to do with the fact that Masvidal has like this genuine sort of personality, and he's like sort of like good with words, or like he can really talk off the cuff and say things that are true to his personality that gets people to really want to put money on him.
Well, people are cheerleaders, right? Like they're cheerleaders, and they think that Masvidal's a badass dude, which he 100% is. But a lot of casual fans, like they only see the end product. So they see people fight in the cage, right? And they think that Masvidal, because he's won a bunch of fights in a row and he beat Nate Diaz, and then they think that because they like him, that he should win this fight, when those two things aren't really congruent. Like if you look at this fight, I mean, I think it's been like 18 fights ago was the last time that Kamaru lost a fight. And George lost a fight, I don't know, a couple years ago. you know, like, and then he took a little bit of time off. And the thing that I worry about this fight is that, look, the UFC is a business, and like they're in hock to ESPN. They owe ESPN a certain number of shows a year, which is why they're going to these great lengths to get all these shows out, right? And Masvidal definitely is a draw. The thing is that in reality, if you want to tell me about a fight, I love watching George fight. But the issue here is that Usman's been training for a fight. He's got a full fight camp. Masvidal has a history of fading in 5-round fights in the past with a full camp. He came in at 192 5 days ago, made weight today. The guy's going to be gassed. He flew all the way to Abu Dhabi. It's hot as fuck over there. You ever been over there?
No.
Oh, it's like, it's got to be like living on the sun.
Yeah.
It's hot as fuck. Imagine being in Vegas, but with no buildings and no palm trees and just some hot ass dirt. Like you're Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. That's what it's like over there. I think he's going to have a problem with the cardio because Kamara, the output is like, it's just too much for most people.
Yeah. Okay. So here's this. I like to gamble. And when I gamble on fights, and I don't know if this is, a rational thing. It's probably not the most rational thing to do. It's definitely the most emotional thing to do when you're gambling on a fight. But I like to watch the stare down. That's where I'm like, if I can watch these two guys look at each other, and maybe I already have like a preconception of who, on a skill level, who might be better, and why the matchup might work out the way it does or whatever. But when I watched their stare down, I thought it looked like this might be a grind, and that, there's good reason for Usman to be the favorite, and he's probably a better wrestler. I'm not a fight expert.
He's definitely a better wrestler.
Right. And I think that based on the stare down, that's it. That it would be a grind, but I still want to put my money on Masvidal because he's the underdog.
And he's a live dog. And so if you're going to bet on this fight and you're going to bet on George, here's what you have to think of. He knows he's had cardio issues in the past. He knows it's a 5-round fight. He knows that he just dropped all that weight. So he's got to do one of two things, right? He's either got to come out and ration his cardio to last 5 rounds. That almost never works out. You almost always wind up losing a decision in that situation. Or he's got to come out and he's got to try and end Kamara's night with one shot. What happens is if you connect, the possibility of ending your opponent's night is real and it exists. But if you miss, if you continue to throw these humongous shots and miss, and you already haven't been, possibly working on your cardio as if you got a fight coming up, you'll wind up getting a little bit more tired, and then it will make the night for your opponent a little bit easier. So betting on Masvidal is a smart move because he will probably come out looking to end the night early. And if he doesn't, he will probably lose a 5-round decision.
I did say that. I said, you know what? If he loses the grind, I said exactly that. I said, if he loses the grind, I didn't put the money down yet, but if he loses the grind, I won't be mad because it'd probably be a good fight. But I get the feeling that he actually hates, like he doesn't like him. I get that feeling that he really does not like him and that he wants to take his head off.
Bro, I'll take your money.
Huh?
I'll take your money.
What do you want to bet?
I mean,
so you what do you mean? What do you mean you'll take my money?
You just said you haven't put the bet down yet.
Like you want to put?
Yeah, I'm right here.
You want to?
I'll take Usman.
Odds as okay. All right. Well, what are you gonna pay me if Masvidal wins?
I'll pay you. What is he? What is he? A 335?
Well, that's the thing. All the lines are different. They seem to be different amongst different sites. So I don't know. Like I was seeing plus 180 on that was it was like plus 225 the other day on another. I don't even remember what site it was. I like text people to get these numbers, but we probably have to go on like Bovada or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the best line is.
I think the fight to look for tomorrow night is going to be the Holloway Volkanovski rematch. I rewatched that last night, and that was actually a lot closer fight than I remembered it being. I thought Volkanovski really just steamrolled him, but Max had some moments in that fight, and when Volkanovski forced him to switch to southpaw, he had some success. And I think that if he starts checking the kicks tomorrow night, he's going to have a lot more success against Volkanovski because it was the leg kicks that really took away Max's mobility. Max is all about movement and volume. And I think that coming into tomorrow night, he's going to have a little bit of a different game plan. So I think that's the fight to watch.
Yeah, that's the I don't know if they're in that order, but who's Aldo fighting?
Aldo's fighting Piotr Jan. That little motherfucker is a monster. Aldo has not been utilizing his leg kicks for like the last couple of years. I think Piotr is going to run right through him. I really do. I don't think Aldo wants to win a boxing or get involved in a boxing match with Piotr. I mean, he's a little monster.
What is it about fighting and MMA that gets me so right? I think what I was trying to say earlier.
Men in their underwear, dude.
Yes, I am closeted gay. No, that's not. Yeah, that might be it. I don't know. That's not really it though. I think there's something about there's something about the spectacle, performing in front of people, and I think what I like about professional fighting versus music is that there's this like shit talking actually plays a part in it a little bit to hype up the fight at least. And I think that, I think that I would do really well with the shit talking aspect of it. So the thing about professional fighting that I really like, and this is why I like the stare downs, it's almost like obviously I like the fighting aspect of it, but I like the buildup of it. And that's obviously what sells fights, I think. I mean, you know more than me, so you could talk about that aspect of it. But I think the selling of the fight, I feel like I could sell a fight. Now, I'm obviously not like a professional fighter or like a great fighter or anything like that, but I feel like I could sell a fucking fight if it came down to it.
I mean, I saw you sell a drinking contest once, so I'm positive you could sell a fight. A lot of times it is the build up to the fight, but like sometimes that shit is like people really don't like each other, and sometimes you're just trying to get people in on the pay-per-view buy so that you become a bigger draw. It really depends on the people, and sometimes it's personal up to a point, and then when the fight is over, like there's this tremendous release of energy and emotion when the fight is over. Like you just went through some shit with someone that nobody else is ever going to understand except the two of you, and so a lot of times that stuff goes away. It's like if you got like maybe you have like an estranged brother that you haven't talked to in 20 years, and all of a sudden your dad dies, and you go through that together, and then all of a sudden a lot of the emotion goes away because you've been brought together by this experience that nobody else can understand but the two people involved.
I got that feeling. I was watching like a Ben Askren thing the other day, and I got that feeling when he was talking about him getting knocked out in record fashion. I got that feeling he was not cool with it, but like,
at peace with it.
Yeah. At peace with it. And that, I mean, I haven't heard Masvidal talk about him at all, but I would imagine if he's a reasonable person, maybe not, but that he would be like, maybe not friends with him, but yeah, it's cool. Like shit's.
There's certainly a mutual respect after that event. I mean, you got knocked out in 5 seconds. There's not a lot you can say other than to kind of like be a little bit self-deprecating about it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, some people though are so stubborn that they wouldn't. I feel like there might be some people that would not be as cool about that.
Perhaps.
Or carry themselves the way that he does.
I think Ben has a lot going on. Like he's got like a wicked successful wrestling academy. He's doing a lot of stuff like online. He's got an online academy and stuff like that. So I think for him, it was about proving that his style was effective at the highest level. And, let's be honest. I mean, Dana doesn't like him. And when he got to the UFC, they gave him a murderer's row of guys who were like the worst possible matchups for him. And he took it all in stride and he went out there and he did his thing. And you got to credit both guys for that. I mean, Ben came out and he did the exact same thing he does in almost every fight. George saw it. George has tons more fight experience than Ben. Certainly Ben has an edge in wrestling experience, but George has a really high fight IQ, and he came out there and he had the answer to what Ben was going to do, and lickety split just like that. It was a wrap.
When you say fight IQ, what does that mean?
It's so hard to put into words. So when you train as a fighter, right, you learn all these different techniques. As my coach, the great Roger Denton, said to me, I can teach you every technique I know, but I can't get in there and do it for you at the right time. So that's kind of what fight IQ is. It's doing the right thing at the right time. It's a level of anticipation for what your opponent might do. And how are you going to counteract that? How are you going to defend it? How are you going to react to that? It's a really hard thing to kind of put into a bucket, but fight IQ involves all those things. And there are certain things you just can't even explain. Like, I find that teaching people, the hardest thing to teach people for me is footwork. Footwork in an octagon is very different than footwork in a boxing ring, because one is a small square and one is a gigantic, almost circular thing. So you have to take a footwork position in an octagon, especially a large octagon, almost like you're an athlete from another sport playing defense, right? So you're taking angles to things. So you have translatable skills from other sports. If you played defensive back in football, if you played defense in lacrosse, if you're an outfielder in baseball, all those things are going to help you to learn how to take an angle towards your opponent. You want to generally go where they're going, not where they were. And understanding where they're going is fight IQ. It's things that it's difficult to teach. Some people have it in them naturally. Some people have it deep down, and you got to kind of like dig it out, and you got to help them manifest it and bring it to the surface. And some people will just never, ever have fight IQ. And you can have all the skills in the world. If you've got a low fight IQ, I mean, I'm not going to call anybody out or anything, but when you look at the way Cody Garbrandt fights, that kid has unbelievable skills. Unbelievable. But he gets suckered sometimes into these brawls, and then he drops his left hand, and then he gets chin checked, and then it's a wrap.
So fight IQ has less to do with like, it's an athletic thing, is what you're saying.
It's athletic and it's mental. You can build it and you can develop it over time. And some people just straight have it. Masvidal has it. He's got incredibly high fight IQ.
Do you think that's from fighting people on like Kimbo's whatever, street thing, or just getting into fights and like, as a kid getting into scraps for whatever reason? Or is it from actually going to the gym and learning from someone?
I think it's probably a combination of all those things. But if you think about how people wind up where they are, we talked about you playing guitar, right? Something drew you to the guitar, you picked it up and you played it. It's called self-selection, right? So generally, as kids are exposed to more and more activities, whether it's playing the guitar, whether it's playing football, whether it's wrestling, the more exposure you have to the more things. A child in general, if like totally unadulterated by the parents, will be drawn to the thing that he's better at. And then he's going to put more time and repetitions into the things he's good at. And it'll just be like a force multiplier.
You know what? That actually, you just made me realize something. I don't come from a family of musicians. I actually come from a family of fighters, believe it or not. My dad was a black belt in Taekwondo and Judo. My uncle was a state champ wrestler in high school. He also wrestled in Special Olympics because he was deaf. And my grandpa boxed in the Army. So none of them were like professional fighters, but they were all like, my dad always said, like, music is not like, no one's a musician in the family. Why is it that when I pick up a guitar and I could see it on the fretboard, like I just have this intuition about where my fingers should go to get the sound that I want. And I don't know if that's just from listening to a lot of music, or if it's like a visual, it's like a weird like pattern. You see patterns, or if it's, I don't know if it's
probably all that stuff.
Yeah. What is it about fighting though? Like a fight IQ. Dude. Is it seeing the angles of a strike that you're about to throw, or a sweep you're about to make, or a trip you're about to do? Like seeing it through, visualizing it before you execute it?
I think what it is a combination of all those things. So in terms of like MMA and fight IQ, you can develop these things through experience, fighting a lot of times like under the lights, or you could just, like I said, you can not naturally have that in you. So when I was a kid, I started boxing at a really young age, and I started wrestling at a really young age. And before MMA became a big thing, like I lived in the type of place where there were lots of Saturday night fights. You'd go to Legion Field in Hamden, and on Saturday night at 8:00, you might have to throw down with somebody. So as a kid who you have to, right?
you just have to.
What are you going to do? Not?
Oh, no.
So in any event, when you're a kid and like, you've already got some boxing experience and some wrestling experience, and MMA is not a thing yet, but you're throwing a double jab to a right hand into a single leg and taking someone down and mounting them and smashing their face. Like, that's just fight IQ. One of the things I always tell people is, I've coached a lot of people in MMA, and when you come into an MMA gym and we're working on a position like the mount, where your knees are straddling your opponent, you're sitting on top of them, they're laying flat on their back. If you have to ask me, is this a good time to elbow someone? Is this a good time to punch someone? Chances are your fight IQ is not going to develop. Like, you have to have a certain instinct for that. Maybe it's because I was getting my ass kicked by my older brother, for a bunch of years, and then I turned 11 and I was able to fuck him up. But who knows what it's from? It's just in people. I have always been a person who's like drawn to that. My 7th grade lacrosse coach said, John has always been drawn to contact. He just can't stay away from the contact portion of it. So, I mean, some people love it. Some people shy away from it. I know how I developed this sense for fighting in my personal life, which is, maybe not the same way that other people arrive at it.
I think that there's something human about fighting and music. There's something innately human about it that I think that's why I'm so drawn to it. And I get riled up when I see a professional fight, especially the lead up to it. But like, obviously the fight itself, there's something about it that like makes me feel alive.
The greatest things in the world are consensual violence, consensual sex, food, and music.
Yeah. Well, why music though? Or is it entertainment? You mean
no, I think it's music. I think music brings people together in a different way than watching a play does. Or you can participate in music without participating in it. To me, maybe people can do this when they watch a play, but when I watch somebody playing live music, I feel like I'm a part of it. Like, you get a reverberation in your gut. You feel something inside you. There's an emotion. As a non-musician, there's an emotion that I can't define, but I feel part of the performance. I never felt like that ever going to a play. Ever in my life.
So you would rather listen to music than watch a movie? Or what would you rather do in that instance?
I think that as a group, like as a small group, which is what like society and culture started as, I think music plays a bigger part in keeping groups of people together.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I would agree with that too. If you're like in a tribe, if you're like in a little nomadic tribe or whatever, it's easier to find a bunch of rocks. It's easier to find a bunch of like sticks and rocks and like make a beat than it is to like act out a play.
Right.
And you need to write that down, actually. Some of the best music, especially in this country, it derived from music that comes from oral cultures. But it's actually a mix of both in this country. It's weird when you have classical music.
Well, think about it. Like, when you sit there and you watch somebody like wailing away on a drum in almost any culture, look at the circle of people around them. They're also tapping away on their knee. They're also moving their foot. They're tapping their foot. They're rocking back and forth. When you watch a play, no one's doing that. No one's miming the words. Nobody's mimicking the movements. When you watch people play music, it's an emotional thing, for me anyway. And the rest of the world might be different. But that's what music does to me. Like, I feel like I'm participating even though I'm not on stage. It's interactive for me.
There is something inexplicable about that, actually, because when I watch a good movie, though, and I'm actually I'm not really like a movie person, to be honest. But when I watch a good movie, there are some movies where I'm like, I could be that character. That guy could be me, or I could be that guy.
Like an adult film or a regular film?
What do you mean adult? Oh, not porno. Well, yeah, porno too. Well, yeah. I mean, there's like unrealistic body expectations and that shit, but you
looking very svelte though, my man.
No, yeah, but I'm still only like 5'9", like 170. I'm not like, I won't talk about how big my dick is, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but it does to porno. In porno, it matters actually,
but not in music.
Not in music. Yeah, fortunately, not in music. I think the thing about music, though, is this the same in fighting, in professional fighting, when you can have actually like really talented musicians that don't go anywhere?
Dude,
and I'm not even talking about me. I mean, I know that'll be me, but I'm saying there's a lot of, and I can explain why. But is it like that in fighting?
It's totally like that. Here's the thing: you have a couple different things working when you talk about that with fighters. Number one, there are some people that will fuck everybody up in the gym, no matter what. And when the lights are on, for some reason, they just can't pull it off. You have guys who can do the opposite. You got some guys that like, you think they're kind of a bum in the gym, and when the lights are on, they just find a way to bust everybody's ass. You got guys who don't even want to compete, who are very, very good fighters, and they just stay in the gym and you never heard of them. You got guys who are really good and can't catch a break because no one's ever seen them fight. And you can boil that down sometimes to, it's a little bit about not necessarily what you know, but who you know. And then you can get guys who are really, really good, but they're not as exciting. And so they're not going to catch the same ratings as everybody else. So big promoters don't want to sell them. It starts on a local level. On a local level, you know how you become a star? You fucking sell tickets. It doesn't matter how good of a fighter you are. If you sell tickets, you're going to have a good record because they're going to give you a bunch of ham and eggers. You're going to get a bunch of lemons, and the promoter is going to be pumped because you sell the most tickets. It happens all the time. Yeah. And what happens is that guy that will only carry him so far. And then at some point, they're not going to care how many tickets you sell when you move on to a bigger, more national or worldwide promotion. And then you're going to get your dick knocked in the dirt. And then it's going to be a wrap. So I'm sure that the same thing happens for music. It's probably like that for lots of industries. The most talented people are not the most successful people all the time.
Right. No, that actually is true. Yeah. And actually there's a lot of like scummy, they take advantage of those things where like they'll run these little, I'm talking about music. They'll run these little things where they'll catch like maybe like high school bands. Well, they don't care who they get, but a lot of the times it's like these high school bands, they'll run this show where it's just like 20 bands on the freaking bill. And the whole point of the group is the group running this, the promotional group running this is just to get money, like quick money.
It's like a local MMA show.
Yeah. You could say that.
Whoever can sell the most tickets gets on the card.
And it doesn't matter if it's like some freaking 15-year-old kid and he's got his parents who are in the freaking PTA and, they're selling it to the rest of the fucking suburban, parents. And all these old people are coming out, right, to watch like this little kid band at a fucking adult venue. Right. And they're the ones that move on to the next thing.
They do it all the time in jiu-jitsu. They have these great cards and they put them together. And what they do is they add these little kid matches. Look, I think it's great that little kids do jiu-jitsu. I really do. And I think it's great that little kids wrestle. But as a paying customer who's going to sit there and I'm paying my money to watch this show on a Friday night, I don't really give a shit about two 11-year-old girls going at it. I really don't. I want to see the highest level competition that I can see. And while, it's cute and it's funny and it's fresh and everything like that, but I can watch that on YouTube. Yeah. I'm paying money to watch the highest possible level. And the sad thing is like one of those kids, maybe it's the kid in the band, maybe it's the 15-year-old jiu-jitsu kid, whatever it is, like someone's gonna keep feeding that kid these lies. And they're going to believe something about themselves that isn't true. And then you set them up for this huge, gigantic fucking letdown. And it's like these kids, they wrestle or they do jujitsu or any sort of thing that the parents push them into. And by 18, man, they're exhausted. They're starting to realize they're not that good at whatever it is. Next thing you know, you're fucking on heroin and you're getting popped for DUIs.
Yeah. Well, did you have to be pushed into doing what you're doing?
No.
Right.
No,
I didn't have to be pushed either. But were you encouraged to maybe do something else?
My dad, when I was a little kid, so I have an older brother and an older sister, and they were not as like naturally curious about activities as I was. So when I was a kid, my dad let me do a whole bunch of shit. And just the only thing he kind of like pushed me into was, man, I should have listened to him. He's so smart the older I get. And I thought he was just a wild man. We were enrolled in these like computer education classes in like fucking 1982. I was like 6 or 7 and like it was Saturday morning and like I'm learning how to code, like, right? Like I'm in this class in like a community center learning 10 line basic programs like go to 8, and then the screen says go fuck yourself 100 times and repeating. And then as soon as I turned 7, I was like, nah, I can't do that because baseball practice is on Saturday mornings. So my dad let me expose myself to all these different things. And as a guy who was into like automotives and motorcycles, I'm sure he would have really enjoyed if I took to hanging out in the garage with him when he would pop the hood of the car. Yeah. But I just was like, let's play catch. Let's see. You know, people are just different. No one pushed me. And
okay, I have a question though. Was your dad like, was he a real master at the craft of what he was doing? Like, honestly though, like, was he like super into, did he think at least that he was like the top of the line?
I think
what he was doing.
I think what my dad was the master at was business.
Okay.
My dad, there's a great book called The E-Myth, and basically the book, the focus is on, you're an entrepreneur, and just because you're good at doing a thing doesn't mean you're good at running a business doing the thing. Yeah. So you could be sick at shredding on the guitar, but it doesn't mean you'd be great at running a guitar teaching school. No. I've been grappling my whole life. Doesn't mean I'd be great at running a grappling gym. It just so happens that I am. But my dad was a guy who, you know, he was always a guy, I think, that was tinkering on cars and everything else like that. And he got into the business at the right time. And I think he started his first shop in the mid 70s. And then in the late 70s, when there was a big oil crisis, a lot of people were buying motorcycles because they're more gas efficient. So I think that was a time where the business boomed. But I think my dad probably is good at everything that he does. But of all the things and traits and qualities you need to be good at running a niche business like that, my dad probably was just better at running the business than anything.
Yeah, I wish I got into the business mindset earlier. I mean, it's not too late, but like, I wish, like, when I was like 21 or whatever, I don't know, when, you know, younger, and I'm not saying I'm old, but I'm just saying I wish actually like 10 years ago that I knew, like, okay, you should set up a website, you know, you should get professional pictures and like do this and that. And it speaks volumes about like having a business sense. Like, you can have all the talent in the world. Sometimes that doesn't work, that you need to have some business sense. And I wish I had that earlier. I'm trying to play catch up now.
The problem is, I think, like, for like a lot of times, like for you with music and for me with fighting and grappling and jiu-jitsu, we get into these fields because it's about passion. And our passion is for the art. Other people get into these fields and they have more of a passion for the dollar. And so what they're doing is they're utilizing utilizing the art as a way to make money, which is fine. Because if what you're passionate about is making money and you have a way to do it, that's great. But for me, I was just passionate about doing the art. I didn't care ever about any money. I don't care about any of that. Like, I want to be on a mat like as much as I possibly can. The reason I opened a jiu-jitsu gym was because I wanted to create a playground for myself as an adult. And I wanted to be like, I always want training partners around. And if I can't have training partners at another gym, I'll just make some training partners and I'll open a gym, and then we can all just train. We can drink, we can travel, we can compete, we can fight people, we can run around a strange city and make asses of ourselves, and nobody's even going to know the better. So that's, you know, it was the passion for doing that and for the lifestyle. My job's a lifestyle job.
It's a lifestyle. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Dude, let me ask you a question. Answer any way you want. First thing that comes to your mind.
Yep.
Why are you here?
Because I love to drink and I love to party and I love to yap. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, I have been stuck. I'll give you the real reason, dude. I've been stuck inside my house. Well, you know, I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't leave for any reason. Honestly, I want to have a good conversation with another fucking man.
You took it pretty literally.
Yeah, I take a lot of things literally.
Existentially, why are you here?
Oh, you mean on Earth? Why am I here?
No, I just asked a question, man. You answer it.
Yeah. Existentially. I'm pretty existential. I mean, I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay. On a worldly perspective.
I hope you do tell the truth.
No, I don't. I only lie when it benefits me. And right now, nothing is. I'm just going to tell the truth. So, why am I here? I don't think, actually, honestly, I don't think there's any reason that humans are put on Earth. I really do not think. I think it's all incidental and coincidental that we are here on Earth, and that it's really a manifestation of chemistry, physics, you know, nature, biology, And that's why we're here. And that we develop the reasons we're here through our experiences growing up.
Where are you going?
Where am I going? Well, that's really existential. I don't know. I actually don't know. That's a big problem. God damn it. You put me on the spot. I don't even actually fucking know where I'm going. I think
you don't have to know. I don't think a lot of people know.
Yeah,
and you figure it out when you get there.
Well, let me tell you this much. I knew at 10 years old that before 10. 10 is when I picked up the guitar, but I knew like I was going to be a performer of some sort and music, and the guitar was going to be my tool to do that. To perform was going to be using the guitar. And that carried me for a long time. And then there was another like little itch inside of me. I think when did it start? It was obvious. It was in high school when it was earlier in high school. We moved. So I was born in Indianapolis, and
Indianapolis is a great city.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even actually know. We moved when I was 7. I won't go too deeply into my personal life. It's kind of fucked up. But at some point, I saw my brother get choked out with a power cord by a bunch of fucking bullies on the street, right? And this was before I got into music, but I knew that this was, yes.
Is your brother older or younger than you?
Younger. He's younger than me.
Okay.
And I froze up and I didn't know what to do. And we, he started crying. Like he got choked out, literally got choked out with a fucking cord.
Well, your little brother got fucked up in front of you and you didn't do anything about it?
Dude, I was like 6 years old. And I was like, these dudes were bigger and they didn't.
Oh, you got to brick somebody.
I know. And you know what? It's weird because, well, you know me now. Yeah, I
know you now. Yeah,
no, but I'm trying to tell you where this maybe came from.
Yeah.
And my mom was not cool with that, with me just standing there. She wasn't cool with it. I got punished. Big time for not doing anything.
I got respect for your mom for that. Too often now, you get coddled.
Yeah, she's a crazy ass bitch. She's a crazy ass bitch. But you know what? There's something about you. We need a little bit of craziness.
Instead of like now a mother lecturing you and saying, hey, how did you let your little brother get his ass whooped in front of you? You didn't do anything about it. You'd probably get counseled for having PTSD and, they'd bake you a cake and give you a hug. Yeah. That's the wrong answer, man. Look at the state the society is in. Yeah. Hugs haven't worked out, bro. Ass whoopings work out.
This is what I'm trying to say. I actually agree. And it's kind of fucked up, but I agree. And I think it's a good kind of fucked up because I remember I was standing there and I was like kind of scared and like she yelled at me. Like she dug into me and I was like, okay. All right. I guess I just have to fight now whenever someone does something bad to me or my family. And that was taught to me. And so from then, I would get into the little I remember the first day of grade school, and I walked to the back of the bus. I didn't even know any better, and I got pushed around, and I was like, what is this? Like a lot of innocence was broken like during these years. This was the same, within the same year, and at first I just took it. Like I didn't cry. I didn't tell anyone. I just took it. But it boggled up inside of me, I think. And then eventually I started fighting back with people. It wasn't because I was like, all right, she's telling me I got to fight. I'm getting pushed around. This is fucking annoying.
So what is it about violence then? I feel like violence can be really, really useful. And I feel like, especially nowadays, it gets a bad rep. And there's a couple different types of violence. There's social violence and antisocial violence. Antisocial violence is what you want to stay away from. That's somebody coming up and trying to yank your purse. They're trying to gain from violence, right? A physical gain. Take your wallet, take something from your person, anything like that. But social violence if you've got two willing people, I mean, violence is a beautiful thing. And violence and sex are two of the most primitive methods of procreation. They're our basic instincts. We're programmed for sex and we're programmed for violence. It's about self-preservation of a species. And too often, like parents and school teachers and things, they suppress our urge to be violent. But instead, if they channeled it and taught us more about it, like everyone should start wrestling in second grade. You learn about violence in a structured, healthy way. Then later on in life, in theory, hopefully, you won't abuse violence. It's like we teach everyone about sex in seventh grade so that they understand their bodies and they understand what it's used for, and hopefully they don't abuse it later in life. Yet violence is nothing but another self-preservation technique, and we don't teach anyone anything about it. We hide it, and we only take it out when it can make people money in movies or in television shows or things like that. I think we need to educate people on violence. We need to make people appreciate violence. We need to introduce people to violence so that they understand it on another level. And hopefully later in life, they don't have to resort to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, yes, I agree with that. Why do we say no when we mean yes? That's another fucked up thing. But it's like life is full of conflict. But I agree, actually. I think it's, yeah, I couldn't raise a child today where like you're supposed to just tell the teacher or, you know, get an administrator involved, and like there's supposed to be like some mediation with words. Although I think there's something to be said about using words and being able to stave off violence. That's another thing. So in social violence, one of the indicators that the violent interaction is social is that there's an opportunity prior to physical contact to extricate yourself using words. You can always de-escalate, because before social violence happens, aggression happens. And aggression is normally verbal and posturing. There's almost always an opportunity to talk yourself out of that situation. Now, when you talk yourself out of that situation, a lot of times it's because the social hierarchy has already been established in that situation. The guy talking himself out of that, as kids, generally speaking, you talked yourself out of it because you're getting fucked up. Like a lot of people talk about this idea of taking the high road. You take the high road from a position of power. You don't take the high road from a position of weakness. When you tell a 13-year-old kid who's getting picked on by a bully to take the high road, that's not what you're telling him. That's not a high road. What you're telling him is to go and cower and walk away. That's a different message. Still valuable, but you're telling him to walk away. The high road is the person who extricates himself from a position of power. A trained MMA fighter who gets a beer dumped on him in a bar and walks away, that's the high road. A 13-year-old kid who gets shoved in a locker and you tell him to walk away, that's not the high road. You're teaching that kid that being weak is okay. You need to teach them to either verbally stand up for themselves or how to, handle a situation. Okay, so what do you think then about what happened with Mike Perry the other day? Is that the high road, or is that literally just like, oh, this guy was attacking me, I gotta fucking knock him out right now?
Let me preface it with our culture of 2-second video clips that never tell the full story, and then people form opinions on them and get into fucking Facebook fights on, 1/100th of the story, I think is a foolish thing. Now, I will tell you that it seemed like Mike Perry hit an old dude. Mike Perry should have taken the high road. He was from a position of power. He should have walked
taken
away.
The high road? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, let me back that.
I think he should have. I like that he smashed him.
Now let me back that up.
But he attacked him.
I couldn't see the whole video. I do believe that any human being that puts their hands on another human being should be prepared to have reciprocation.
Right. Okay.
But
so you actually then agree with me, I think, on that one. Then.
I didn't see the guy clearly put his hands on Mike Perry. And also it's like,
what the hell did Mike do before to even get to that point?
Well, he seems like he might have, some couple of screws loose.
Going all right.
But
like professional fighter, he's got to.
Did the guy push Mike Perry? Did the guy hit him? I mean, if you push a guy who's a professional fighter and you're an overweight 70-year-old guy, I mean, the guy has like gray hair and he's bald.
Yeah, he probably didn't know.
No, you don't need to crack that guy.
You don't need to crack that guy. Yeah.
No, what you should have done.
He was drunk.
And what you should have done is you should have extricated yourself from the situation way earlier.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like social violence, and that's what that is. That's social violence. There's an opportunity before contact to get yourself out of the situation. And neither of those guys were willing to do that, probably because there was booze involved. Mm-hmm. So.
And that's quite the dilemma. Because I mean, like, how many times have I been drinking, right? And I've maybe caused a little bit of a fucking problem. You know, do you fight then? There's no high road there. That's just drunken violence, right? That's just like,
it's a little bit different.
You idiots.
I think it's different in that context. Like in that context, you're looking to prove something and you're trying to establish a social hierarchy. So you know what happens when lobsters want to fuck? The two lobsters.
No.
The two lobsters walk at each other, right? The two dude lobsters, and they're looking for the chick lobster. And what they do is they walk towards each other and they touch claws and heads, and they both kind of like move up, and they wind up standing on their tails and their hind legs. And guess what happens? The lobster that goes to their back, he's fucking pinned, like in wrestling. He lost, and he knows he lost, and it's deuces. He leaves the area, and then the victor lobster gets the chick.
Okay, what's too far then in the human world? What's too far in a situation like that?
It's really difficult.
Give me a parallel situation where, like, okay, the pin is over with the lobster. What is it with the humans?
I can't define it, but I can tell you, as someone who has a slightly misspent youth and has probably been in more dust ups on the street than should happen, I think that there's a level. It's a fight IQ. It's like, okay. I know I've totally controlled you.
Yeah.
I don't need to add punishment onto that. I controlled you. I
Okay.
put you on your back. I did something. Maybe I knocked you out. I don't need to add insult to injury. I know I've won. I'm now in control.
What is the look though what is the thing that triggers? Is it a look on their face? Is it their eyes? Is it what is it?
You ever been in side control with someone and you know you're not getting out?
Yeah.
Well, they fucking know you're not getting out too. And that's the point when you're a kid. When you're a kid, you shouldn't be getting in these fights like when you're an adult. When you're a kid, when you're 16 years old, you get into a position on someone, you know they're not getting out, and that's what happens. You say, hey, have you had enough? And generally they'll say, yeah, I've had enough. Yeah.
So it's everything that their body is doing.
And you know what happens after that most of the time? Yeah. Those two kids become fucking friends. Yeah, and they usually become really good friends.
Yeah.
And all these parents and all these educators that are not allowing people to like handle themselves and explore these different parts of their psyche, their body, and their emotions, they're denying these kids a lasting bond that happens after a physical altercation. You're denying these kids. It's like giving the ADD kids fucking drugs, man. Those kids are creative. They're trying to do things. Why do you want to stifle that? Let those kids move.
Actually,
give them some freedom.
You're right about that. 100%. That's true. That's 100% true. I think they're just not meant for the way that school's formatted, the way public school is formatted, at least, and you know, even a lot of private schools, but public school for sure. And I think that if you know, they would probably say I have ADD. I've never been diagnosed with it. I've always been the smart kid, and so you know, I feel like I pace like a motherfucker.
Man, I don't know. I think ADD is kind of like
hyperactive disorder, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like it would fit into their criteria.
I call it being a kid.
No, I know. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to be a kid. Okay. I work like a sedentary office job. And how many steps did I take the other day?
7.
No, like 20,000.
Were you running past a nurse's station?
I don't need to. I can just sit there. The nurses will come to me. This is another thing, like sexual harassment in the workplace. I was actually talking about this with my buddies the other day. You know, with the way that society sort of like dances around what's very obvious, or like, you know, there's this sort of elephant in the room that's not being acknowledged. You know, we talk about, okay, so like public school, well, any school, really, it doesn't matter. School in general, they don't want you fighting. They don't want kids fighting. They also don't want like a lot of promiscuity going on either. Why is it that when I get into the adult world, I'm an adult now, I do more fighting and I get hit on by more women than ever before? It's almost like school did not prepare me for the future. It's kind of crazy.
It sounds like you didn't prepare yourself during high school.
No, I mean, I prepared myself. I mean, I knew, but no, but I already knew. It's not like I'm innocent to this.
Yeah, you're a regular Lothario.
Yeah. I'm just saying, they're dancing. They're not acknowledging the elephant in the room. This is what I'm trying to say.
What's the elephant in the room? What are you saying? Like that you're getting harassed at work and no one cares, or that you're getting harassed at work and you don't care, or that it's a mutual harassment? It's like an unspoken contract where they're going to harass you. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's that. There's also, I think that it's like someone gets offended over something and now everyone has to be offended by it. And I know we're towing a line here. I know I'm towing a line, but I just think that I guess bureaucracy works better for the masses. It's like an iron cage, as Weber would say, you know?
Yeah.
I'm really into sociology, and I studied the social sciences in high school and college because I was really into. I should have studied music, but I was like, yeah, fuck it. I only want to like rock out and riff and rock, and like I'm good with that.
You want to become a nerdy jazz guy?
I read music. I don't. Yeah, I can already read music. It doesn't matter. I didn't need to.
Yeah, take the social sciences. It's the easy way to a degree.
It was an easy way to a degree. There was more women in the classroom, and there was debates going on, and I loved to debate. I love to argue with anyone. And so I just think that there were some things that I didn't find out until later that I just realized, wow, that was a whole farce during high school or middle school or whatever.
Like what?
Well, we're talking about like fighting is a part of our history. Conflict fighting is a part of our history. Like governments changed because people shed blood. That was, like
lessons not learned in blood are soon forgotten.
Yeah, who said that?
The guy in Law Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler.
I've never seen that movie. Gerard Butler does play a good badass though.
You should check it out on Netflix.
Australians, I've never met an Australian, but I can imagine if the stereotypes are true, those dudes love to fight.
Dude, you never met an Australian?
No.
Ever?
No.
Are you positive?
I'm not that worldly to meet an Australian.
I bet you have and you don't even know it.
Who? Someone at the gym?
I don't know.
Right. I can't think of them right now. I'm so high and drunk that I don't even fucking know. But I don't think so. I really don't think so. I just think that, anyways, back to what we were talking about like school not really preparing you for the real world. And I think that I wanted to play music, and that prepared me for the real world in an odd way. I also think that I did that for so many years, and then it wasn't until early in my professional career, and by what I mean by that is I just graduated college, that I thought I need to get into some sort of martial art or fighting, doing something that's human, as human as music, that you didn't get in school, that they may even, discouraged in school. You're not allowed to like walk into English class and just choke someone out. You're not going to learn. There's no syllabus built around beating the shit out of someone, either by punching them or choking them out or whatever. And even I think the closest thing you might get to it, at least in school, is wrestling. And I really wanted to wrestle out of middle school. I said, I'm going to be a wrestler like my uncle. They got rid of it. And actually, it's funny. My school didn't get a wrestling program until Soap came out and started.
Oh, the great Soap on MVAR, huh?
Yeah, you should get him on this podcast.
I probably will try to.
But, I didn't get any of that. And so I needed to seek that. I think that's why I ended up at Broadway. I mean, really, or Tap Out. It was actually Tap Out, but which led me to Broadway.
Dude, wrestling for little kids is a wild, wild thing. It's like I started wrestling in 7th grade, and it's like you got to get in this crazy little uniform. Like your little tiny 7th grade balls are everywhere for everyone to see, and then like you gotta grab another dude who's trying to get on top of you, and it's like all the girls are watching, and it's like shit. Like it's the most intimidating thing. And for me, I can remember I started wrestling in 7th grade, and God damn, those practices were hard. And I was like, I want to quit. And my dad said, You don't have to do it next year, but you're not going to quit in the middle of the year. You are not going to do that. And that lesson that my dad taught me probably changed my entire life. And here I am, fucking 30 years later, talking about fighting on a couple of Shure Beta 58s.
This isn't a 57?
Yeah, yours is a 57.
Well, I think the not quitting part that's something that also I had to that had to be drilled into my head. That wasn't something that naturally you come up with, and that's, well, not me. And I think that that also in part led me to want to keep playing the guitar more. Like, reading music is not easy, and like learning how to read it, it's not as physically taxing in any way, obviously, but I think mentally you're just like, I could do something else. What the hell's the point in this? But like during this whole COVID thing, I was like, all right, I'm gonna pull out some lead sheets for some jazz tunes that normally no one's gonna call me to play this, and I'm not seeking these types of gigs, but hell, I'm gonna like read through this and learn the lines that they're playing, and there was and I didn't want to quit. Like, I just wanted to keep doing it. So the lesson of not quitting that might be the most important fucking thing ever that anyone could teach anyone.
That's what wrestling teaches, I think. I think wrestling teaches kids, boys, girls, whatever. The lessons you learn in wrestling are the lessons that will guide you through life. Don't be a goddamn quitter. It's all up to you. It's just you against another person. When no one's looking, you better be doing your cardio. When no one's looking, you better be doing your running. It's not a football game where you could blame the quarterback for throwing a pick, or you could blame someone for missing a block, or you could blame the pitcher for getting teed off on in a baseball game. None of that shit matters. It's about accountability. You're out there with another dude your same size in your underwear, and the better guy's going to win. And there's nothing else you can say other than that guy was better than me, or I made a mistake. If you've done everything right, preparation to me is about eliminating excuses. You eliminate all the excuses. You do everything you can so that when the day is done, if you haven't beat everybody that's in front of you, there's only two things you can say. I fucked up, or that guy's better than me. That guy's better than me is a real tough pill to swallow. It's a real tough pill to swallow. And the minute you can start to understand that, admit that, and digest that, that's the nastiest flavor you ever want to taste. And so you start to think, okay, I've got to eliminate that in my preparation next time, so that the only reason that I could lose is if I fucked up. I'd much rather be able to walk out of a tournament and say, I lost because I made a mistake, than I lost because that guy's better than me. I just can't I can't stomach the thought that someone's better than me.
Right.
I just can't stomach it. It's a tough thing to swallow.
Okay, there's something objective though about knowing who's better than you in competition in sports. Literally, they won. They won the match. They won the trophy. How do you do that with music? When you're convinced that, I'm saying this out loud, how do I tell myself, because I might say that guy's better than me. How you can't come back from that. It's so subjective, because someone else might say, no, you're better than him. And they might mean it, but you're thinking, because a lot of mostly what matters is what's in your head.
That's tough to do in music because it's subjective. And when you have sports, even in certain sports, it's difficult. Like, think about gymnastics. Right. Okay. You've got subjective scoring.
Yeah.
The only, I talk with Sean Fisher about this a lot, which is the only way to figure out really who's the best is to have an objective scoring system, objective, not subjective. And that you go down a whole other path with that. And you've got to have an active defense. You've got to have someone trying to stop you from doing that. Now, you want to tell me that there's some guitar scholar somewhere that can say, Paul hit this string a little bit too close to the fret, or you did this, or you did that. But at the end of the day, here's the difference. If I lose a jiu-jitsu match, an MMA fight, or a wrestling match, no one is going to say, oh, he lost, but I really liked his performance. That's not going to happen. You still lose. It goes on your record as a loss. You might not be the most technical guitar player, not you specifically, but you in general. But if what you play makes somebody get butterflies in their stomach, makes their heart beat fast, makes their dick get hard, then you win. You're the guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is true, actually. I did think of that, but I didn't think of that until now. That's actually true.
Think about this.
That's why you need the business aspect to get to those fucking people.
Think about this. think about how many songs are your guilty pleasures. Think about the songs that you don't tell everyone because they're not great songs.
I'll tell you right now.
But in reality, you got shit blasting on your headphones, and like, you don't want to tell everybody that because maybe it's not the greatest song, but it does something to you personally. It moves you in a way you can't explain to everybody else. A losing performance in a jiu-jitsu match doesn't fucking move anybody. Maybe the greatest matches of all time when you see two guys really let it all fly. Yeah. But in general, that doesn't happen. Yeah. But in music, it happens. I mean, like when I go to the gym and I'm benching, I sometimes think to myself, like, what if everyone around me knew? What if there was a secret app where they could listen to, and they knew that I'm like benching, I'm doing my personal record, and Since You've Been Gone is on like 11 on my iPod, and I'm rocking Kelly Clarkson. Like, what happens if I'm squatting and people know I'm listening to some like Ryan Adams? Like, what happens? Like, I mean, stuff that sometimes is reserved for a bottle of whiskey and 2 a.m. You know what? But that's the stuff. Like, that's why music is so hard to qualify.
Right.
Because if it moves you in a different way, it's like art. Like, I don't know anything about art. I know shit about art. You know what I know? I know when I look at something that hangs on the wall, it does something inside my stomach and inside my soul. And then I say, I got to fucking have that thing.
Right. No, well, that's good art then. Yeah.
When I see objects of great beauty, I must have them.
Sometimes they breathe. I mean, you know, the thing is that that's true. And you know what I thought? If there's one person out there that thinks that about whatever you're creating, art, you know, creatively, there has to be, like, statistically, there's got to be one other person too. And then a few other after that. And that's where that business aspect comes in, I think. That's why, you know, because getting the word out to these people that, I mean, some people are just there to soak in the people creating.
Everyone is out there, man. With social media right now, everyone is out there, and they're a consumer. Like right now, here we are. We're doing this podcast. It's the first one. Right now, we're producing something. We're making something that we hope that people will find interesting, and then they'll consume it. Most people are consumers. And when you think about the math, there's got to be enough people out there that want to consume what you're producing that it's viable. Yeah. And even if you don't make any money on it, like, do you even care? Like, you just want people to say, like, God damn, like you want them to appreciate the thing you're doing. I don't care if I make enough money to like be rich and famous at jiu-jitsu or these podcasts or whatever it is that I do. Yeah. But like, I want someone to understand it on a level where I feel like they appreciate it. And that's gratification for me.
Some people do say that if you're truly talented, it'll come to you eventually. And it may not be like while you're, you know, you think about, we do fetishize young people, you know, like you.
What?
No, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, you know, all the rock stars, they died. Like the biggest ones, they died when they were 27. That's young. 27 is young. So we put them on a pedestal, like youth, you know, being like making it big fast. And when you're young, Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champion, wasn't he? Mike Tyson was.
He was.
Yeah, he was like 20 years old or whatever.
It's a beast. Yeah. Still a beast.
But that's like something they tack on to his name. Or isn't John Jones the youngest light heavyweight champion?
Yeah, he's like the youngest UFC champion. I don't know, but it's a different mystique. It's a different mystique. Tyson, like John Jones was gonna fuck you up for sure.
Yeah.
But like John Jones might outpoint you for 25 minutes, where Mike Tyson is going to decapitate you with one shot in about 14 seconds. It's a different mystique.
I was thinking about this earlier about Mike Tyson and why. So there's so many like great fighters, and you look at his record, and some people, not me, but some people might say like, you know, he was fighting cans or whatever. A lot of them were, right? Or they were like tune-up fights or whatever. But the thing that I really think of what made Tyson popular was because, number one, everyone wants to see the heaviest, biggest dudes go at it because they represent a very small population of the world. So there's that aspect. Naturally, he's a heavyweight. But number two, he was also fighting dudes bigger than him. So he was sort of like a perceived underdog in the heavyweight division. So you know, like that.
The main problem with Tyson's heavyweight reign was that he didn't have a foil. Every great champion needs a great opponent.
Not Holyfield?
Well, by the time he got to Holyfield, like his training camp was gone. He was under Don King. Cuss had died. All that stuff had happened with Kevin Rooney. So it was a lot different. But I mean, had that happened at a different time, I mean, I don't know. Everybody likes to speculate, but I mean, I don't like to speculate because emotionally for me, like I'm biased towards Mike because I watched all those fights growing up as a kid. Yeah. It's one of the things that got me into combat sports. But every great heavyweight has a great foil. You got Ali and Frazier, Foreman. I mean, think about those three middleweights in the 80s, like fucking Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Duran was even fighting, like moving around all those weight classes. I mean, what made those guys great was the opponents. Yeah. You can't be great without a great opponent. John Jones has never had a great opponent. Maybe Gustafsson, but I mean, you know, it's just such a different thing. John Jones also, like, he's got a different personality than Tyson. Tyson was unapologetic, brutally honest. That dude was so honest that it's frightening. And John Jones is full of shit.
This goes back to what we were talking about, the gift of the gab, building up the fight and having that. So I was going to say one of my favorite Tyson fights, and this is just me, and some people are like, what the hell is this fucking dude talking about? Is when he came right after he got out of prison, he fought this dude, McNeely or whatever.
The Cocoon of Terror, Peter McNeely.
Yeah, Peter McNeely.
I think he's at the Krausers down across from the Andrews Tea Station right now.
Probably. It was the stare down. It was that look, the camera on Tyson's face that I was like, oh, he's going to fuck this guy up. We all knew he's going to fuck him up anyway, but there was something about his eyes, that stare down, you felt the story. You know what I'm saying? That's like that. That's
Mike Tyson is like one of the most tragic stories of our time because I think one of the misconceptions about Mike is that he's some sort of like simian-esque heathen who doesn't know anything. I think Mike is a wicked smart dude. I just don't think he's educated. Yeah, the honesty of that guy is off-putting.
Yeah, right.
He's so honest that it's off-putting. Whereas when you compare him to, like, let's just make his counterpart in MMA right now, who would probably be John Jones. John Jones is just full of shit. Like, no one really respects John Jones. Like, he's, you know, obviously he's a great fighter.
Yeah.
But, you know, both of the guys kind of like will have misused their prime athletic years.
So it's beyond the fighting though, then, right? Isn't it then? Isn't it about the human at that point? It's about the human then. And they're expressing themselves through the fighting.
So Mike Tyson, when he was fighting, you didn't need to hear the story about, oh, he grew up poor in the Bronx and his mom this and his mom that. He just was that, and you sensed that about him. And you didn't have to do an ESPN 30 for 30. You didn't have to do a Dana White vlog. You didn't have to do any of these like things to tell his story. But everything you watch now, whether you watch Alone on Discovery Channel, or whether you watch The Ultimate Fighter, or whether you watch anything, all they try to do is talk about these unbelievably difficult obstacles that everyone has overcome. Man, it's so old and dry. Like, everyone's had something tough happen to them in their life. It's how they deal with it that's different. Something that happened to me in my life may be perceived as not very difficult to overcome to someone else, and vice versa. Right. But like, I'm so fucking tired of hearing about how, oh, this person and their mom was poor and you had to do this and you had to go to the gym.
Overplayed
Man, story. It's just fucking overplayed. Right. Like, and also it's overplayed, it's overdone, and it's exaggerated. Yeah. Mike is a different story. He's the genuine article. The Diaz brothers are the genuine article. Right. Like, those guys, George Masvidal is the genuine article.
Yeah, he does strike me as that.
There's a humongous difference between a fighter and an athlete. In the Venn diagram, there's certainly a lot of crossover, but not all athletes are fighters and not all fighters are athletes. Right. I love the fighters. And when I look at MMA, this is how I define a fighter. You might be great in the octagon. Would I want you next to me in a parking lot defending myself against a group of people? Are you a fighter or are you an athlete? You know what I'm saying? It's a huge question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I'll take Diaz brothers. I'll take BJ Penn.
Yeah.
I'll take Masvidal. And I'll tell you what, I'll take fucking Mike Perry. That's it for us, everybody. Thanks, as always, to our guests for coming down to Podcast Alley and spending a few minutes with us shooting the shit. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you get this intel as fast as we do. Good night, everybody.